Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some adult fantasy book recommendations that have hard magic systems. If you are an aspiring writer, I said this when I talked about soft magic system recommendations as well, that you should definitely check out Brandon Sanderson's lectures if you are looking for the ins and outs of what makes something soft versus what makes something hard in its magic system, what is going to be the things to look out for, what to do to make sure it's done really well, what you don't want to do. Definitely, he's the root of all of this. He's the source that you want to go to. I'm just more so going to be recommending books, not telling you how to go about it. But as a result of Brandon Sanderson kind of being the person who has coined some of these terms and made them very popular, I feel like I have to start the list off with his works, specifically his Cosmere works. I could have just made several of my recommendations on this list, multiple books of his, so I'm just going to kind of go through a couple of them really quick. Mistborn, you don't have Mistborn without its magic. There's just absolutely no way. It is so a part of the characters' lives, it's a part of the plot, it's a part of how they decide they're going to try and pull off a certain kind of heist. And so most of you know the story of Mistborn. It follows a character named Vin, who is among the lower class, and her and a bunch of other people, including a man named Kelsier and a whole gang of other misfits, kind of band together. And really the classes are the nobles and the Ska, which is where Vin is from. And so you're seeing these characters trying to learn how to best utilize their magic so they can try and use it on behalf of the people, on behalf of those they are trying to free from oppression. And the magic system has to do with ingesting metals and then gaining certain powers. There are some people that can only take power from one kind of metal, and then there are Mistborn that have the ability to take power from all of the metals. On top of that, there are several different magic systems that are explored within this trilogy, and then you also see that expanded on in the series continuation with the second era Mistborn books. So on top of having set rules and limitations, it's also always kind of expanding and you're getting more of it, which is really exciting. If you're a fan of hard magic systems and you haven't checked out Mistborn, obviously give it a go. I have to also mention Warbreaker and Stormlight Archive as well. I think their magic systems, because the characters themselves are still kind of learning things and it's coming to the characters in a way that is not as relevant to the plot right away, I would say that maybe they're not as clear of examples of a hard magic system like Mistborn. With Stormlight Archive, it's kind of coming to understand how the magic works, and it's definitely still complex. It still has its rules and limitations. It's just the characters don't really know them all that well. And then with Warbreaker, it's like, in my opinion, if you take the magic of Mistborn and then you up it to just be even more vibrant, we'll say. Warbreaker has such a fun magic system. It's very colorful, it's very cool. So I highly recommend checking out, just in general, Brandon Sanderson if you like hard magic systems. From there, I'm actually going to mention Jade City. I, for some reason, don't know that people really think of Jade City when they think of a hard magic system. But it's funny because the way that the characters interact with Jade in the story is a little bit like the way that the characters interact with different kinds of metals and Mistborn. There are certain abilities associated with Jade that some people have, and there's definitely repercussions if you use Jade in a way that you're not supposed to. And because this is a more kind of modern setting and it feels more urban fantasy, I'm not sure if that's why it doesn't really get thought of when we think of hard magic, but there are definitely set rules and limitations, and it plays a role in the main characters' lives. They use Jade, and that's kind of one of the things you see as a specific with hard magic systems. There are the characters utilizing the magic to their advantage. And 100% in Jade City, you have characters that run a gang, and they've kind of been in this position as a result of their abilities with Jade. They interact with Jade in the economy. They interact with the government. They interact with neighborhoods, with people. They have their power, their influence, infiltrating basically everything, and it all kind of comes back to Jade. And if you're somebody who enjoys urban fantasy, you enjoy stories where there's complex character relationships, I definitely would say check out Jade City. This next one, I do want to say that I think that the first book doesn't elaborate all that much on some of the finer details of the magic system, but I will be continuing on with the series, and I do think that it has rules and limitations. I just don't know all of the specifics just yet, and that would be Codex Alera by Jim Butcher. So there are certain elements to the magic in this story that actually reminded me of Allomancy in Mistborn. So one of the powers in Mistborn is that certain people have the ability to somewhat soothe or riot your emotions, And you actually see people that have the ability to do that in this as well. However, this is more elemental based. So the specific people that have the ability to do that are more so connected with fire. And on top of it being somewhat elemental based, there's also sort of these spirits as well that are called furies. And so you have a fury that connects you to an element that gives you certain powers. And like I said, all the specifics are not quite elaborated on in this first book, but they're very much there. The water users can heal people and manipulate water. There are earth users. You get how it works with elemental magic. And you definitely see our main characters taking advantage of their magical power to help try and prevent the threat from affecting them and other people. Something that does set this one apart, though, is that our main character in this first book does not have magical abilities. You have other characters that do. In fact, most people have some kind of magical ability, but our main character does not, which is a little bit different than what you typically expect from a hard magic system. And now that I'm saying it, it's reminding me of another Brandon Sanderson book, Rhythmatist. But that one's not adult fantasy. That is for younger readers, but it's also a great magic system. But anyway, this one has a character who doesn't have magic. And so in something like Mistborn, you see our main character trying to learn all the ins and outs of the magic system to their benefit, whereas in this one, it's like, I don't have magic, even though everyone around me does. And that obviously is going to create a slightly different narrative. It's going to make for a very different kind of character than the character that you have in Mistborn. After that, we have Black Prism. A lot of you are very familiar with Black Prism. There is a magic system that's somewhat based in colors. So with Allomancy, because I would say Mistborn is more popular than Black Prism, I'm going to sort of make the comparison there. In Mistborn, you have characters that can pull from certain metals, and then in Black Prism, you have people that pull from certain colors. And there is one individual who is known as the Prism, who can pull from all the colors. However, there is a negative side effect to this. And so the rules and limitations are very clear right away. And I would say whenever people talk about Black Prism, it's very much the magic system that gets discussed, as if the magic system itself is the plot. Same thing with a lot of these other books on this list. With Jade City, you see people talk about the connection with Jade. With Mistborn, you see people talk about the relationship with metals. And so in this one, how much the characters can interact with their powers, with the colors, is going to play a huge role in them themselves, and it also ends up impacting everything in their society. And you actually see certain people, like women, in the story, you see them, because they more often can differentiate colors, it actually can give them a little bit of an edge. So there's lots of little details that are crafted within the story that definitely relate to the magic system itself. And then last for today, I have to mention Foundryside. Foundryside has probably one of the most unique magic systems I've come across, and it's a very kind of fun, action-packed adventure sort of a story. So if you're somebody who's in the mood for something that's maybe not as gloomy as Mistborn, and also maybe just a little bit more of a fun adventure than some of the other books on this list, Foundryside is definitely for you. The way the magic system works is that you have objects that can essentially be coded to have their reality warped. The example that I always give is very early on. It's described as if there is a wheel that needs to move, but you don't have a horse or something to pull a cart, you can actually code into the wheel to believe that the wind is blowing, and therefore it is turning the wheel so that the wheel will turn. So you're warping its perception, and it does create for this almost personification of objects, which plays a huge role in the story. That concept, that personification of objects, you are going to see be very important to the story, and it also is part of what creates for some pretty fun banter, if you will, some pretty fun dialogue. But the story, the thing that kind of throws everything for a loop, is that there is an object. It's almost like a virus, like it can change the coding that has been programmed into something. And this should not exist. So this kind of throws everything for a loop. Our main character had no desire to get involved with anything of this significance, but they were just trying to do a job as a thief, and they stole this object not knowing what it was, and then now there's all sorts of people after them, and they're sort of caught in the middle of something that they typically would never be in the middle of, and they're just on the run, and they do interact with some other individuals along the way. But anyway, I would say these particular stories, while they all are known for having hard magic systems, the details of the magic systems are all fairly different. There's some similarities, of course, and they operate within the same kind of umbrella of things. If any of these books sound interesting to you, I will have some purchase links in the description bar down below. And if you would like me to do more of these kinds of videos in the future, I would be happy to do so. If you have any of your own hard magic system recommendations, I would love to see that as well. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.